and help us to be wise in times when we don't
Welcome everyone. My name is Michael Burke and I'm a civil celebrant. We draw aside this afternoon with a whole lot more questions than we get decent answers. But we come to this place to reminisce a little, to share memories, to pay tribute and to celebrate the life of Mark LAVERS and to give him back to the creation with dignity and with respect. But Mark, we also come aside just for one other reason today, and that's to say thanks. Thanks for being in our lives. Thanks for being a husband, brother, uncle, a friend, a work colleague. Thanks for caring. Thanks for being there for us. Thanks for all the work you've done serving the community through your police work. But most of all, thanks for sharing your life with us. You were one of a kind. You know, for most people, today it's just another Tuesday. They got up, they had a shower, they had a coffee, and life kept on going. For all of us, we stop and we gather in remembrance of a very, very special man in our lives. And in doing so, we become aware that all of our lives are somehow interrelated. Our being here today is another meaningful experience of love, friendship, and respect for Mark. His passing reminds us of the fragility of our relationships in life and the special and unique way in which we relate to those people who do share our lives. And you know, I think it's at times like this that we slow down, we sit back, and then all of a sudden we realise the debt we owe to those gone before us. And we realise how they've actually contributed to our own lives, both in the past and into the future. And as we celebrate his life today, you can take satisfaction that he has been and he still is a part of all of your lives, simply because his influence endures, and it'll continue to endure in the unending consequences flowing from his character and from his deeds. As I said, we just don't come here today to mourn his passing, but more to reminisce and share memories. And to help us with that, we're now going to hear from Mr. Hegarty. No? Is he here? Steve Hegarty? No, you're first, mate.
Oh, okay.
Come on up. I don't like to tell police what to do, but...
Okay. Okay, it's taken me by surprise a little bit, so I do apologise for that. I was asked to read the police service. I worked with Mark from about 2007 through to 2013. Mark and I were both duty officers at Wollongong with Brian Wyver, Graham Donnelly, the late Graham Donnelly, and Ken McDonald. So we had a really good team there, Joe Muir as well. Very dedicated police officer, loveliest person in the world, very reliable as well. So, excuse me, he's one of those people that you could turn it to work at any day and know that he was going to do the best for the community, best for him. I had a read through his service history yesterday, and there's a lot of awards there for community service. So he actually received a commissioner citation for his service to the community, which is reflecting on the person who he really was. I do apologise, I didn't write a speech for this, but I think everybody in the room knows who he was, who he is. He's one of those people that I remember going to a brawl at Australia Day there, and he was there by himself, and the guy loves OC spray. So if anyone's seen a person with Mortine trying to kill flies in the middle of summer, that's Mark Lavers at a railway station, a brawl, or Australia Day ceremony, where he's just spraying people and knocking them down and looking at me laughing and going, "How good's this?" So I think it was the best. It was the best introduction to my workings with Mark on my first Australia Day with him, and that was it's a sort of person I wanted to stay next to the whole time. Every time I went to a brawl, it was fantastic. I've seen pictures of him from the Bathurst riots. So if you can picture a bloke that's he obviously hasn't got a mirror at home. He doesn't know how big he really is. So he's weighing in at probably 75 kilos, but he's taking on 100 kilo people with little battens and puts his helmet on, and all you can see is a big smile on his face going, "This is the best job ever." So look, what I'll do, instead of getting up later on, I'll read out his service history. So Chief Inspector Mark Douglas Lavers, retired, registered number 19430. Mark joined the New South Wales Police Force on the 19th of January 1981 as a trainee at Redfern Police Academy. On the 6th of April 1981, as a probationary constable, he took up the first appointment at number 9 Division at Burwood. During his early years, Mark served the community by performing general duties within Enfield, Cronulla, Sutherland, Engadine and Mascot. On the 27th of July 1995, Mark was promoted to the rank of Sergeant at Botany Bay Police Station. On the 14th of September 2003, he was appointed as the Chief Inspector on a Section 66 at Wollongong Police Station. His appointment was confirmed on the 10th of November 2003, and Mark was officially promoted to the rank of Chief Inspector. On the 26th of September 2013, Mark retired from the New South Wales Police Force. During his long service, he was formally awarded with the New South Wales Police Medal on the 10th of December 2003, a third, a fourth clasp on the 2007-2014. He received a national medal on the 8th of March 1997 with a first clasp in 2006, a National Police Service Medal on the 3rd of April 2013, and as I said previously, a Commissioner citation on the 31st of July 2012 for his service to the community. Mark received numerous complimentary remarks on his service history as a result of being nominated by not only his peers, his commander, but also the members of the public as well. Mark will always live long in our hearts. He's an absolutely champion guy and a champion police officer. If we could have more of him, I think the world would be a very safe place to be. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. And now we're going to hear from Deputy Commissioner Gary Warbles. I'm glad you got up, Gary, because I wasn't willing to tell you what to do.
You shouldn't be worried, because I've found that plenty of people do. The older you get, the more you attain rank in this organisation, there's more and more people tell you what to do. But it gives me a great deal of pleasure and honour to be here today and just say a few words that I hope that can give you some comfort, Chris, but also maybe put a smile on your face about my relationship with Mark. As I was driving down today, it sort of occurred to me again about this thing called the police family, and we look around and it's there, and there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that that will continue for whenever you need it, whenever you want it, whenever you feel it should be there. But I guess then you sort of think about, why? Why Mark? Because it's just not fair. It's not fair for anyone in here today to wonder why Mark was chosen to be taken from us, and certainly not for you, Chris, and the extended family that are here. And there's no good reason to it at all. And as much as you try and process that, as much as you try and think about it, you still come up with no reasons except to simply put it down to that, I guess life is so fickle, and when that whistle's blown, none of us get the opportunity to, to make a decision around that. And it's up to all of us to support Chris, and indeed all of Mark's close friends and colleagues that I see here today, and to make sure that as much as we can never ever, make it totally right, we can certainly step down that path just a little for you, Chris. So, I guess, when I met Mark, it was an interesting relationship because I came to Wollongong to try and, make a little bit of a difference that I could. And there's three things that stick out, and one of them was, he was such a calm person. He was someone of such reason and maturity. Although he did speak his mind, there was absolutely no doubt about that. But I sort of figured the three things that might interest you was I tried so hard to calm Mark, the person that was so measured in his approach to things, about the motorbikes that used to race down that terrible stretch of road, and I tried so hard to get Sergeant Arnold to do something about that. And Sergeant Arnold failed, Chris, you're right. He seemed to relish the fact that it would make Mark go quite cranky, and there was nothing that I could do to assist him with that. And it was one of the times that, to have some influence that I thought I could, I didn't. But of course, every time that I seen that text message about a motorbike rider falling off a motorbike north of Wollongong, I often wondered whether Mark had, in some strange way, something to do with that. But then, of course, I tried to introduce Mark to community engagement and community policing, and I knew that would be difficult. A person that had been in and around tactical policing, the Bathurst riots, motorbike races, and so forth. And I tried so ever hard to pull Mark aside and teach him the softer, the underbelly of policing, where communities might do a little better if we set up a van at Bellambi and talk to people instead of throwing them in the back of it. And it's interesting then to look at his service history, Chris, and see how many recommendations and commendations and citations are around service to the community, because he was never one that, you really knew that you had in terms of community-based policing, because Mark was the sort of person that was far better with capsicum spray, was never absent when there was a brawl, was never absent when there was an armed hold-up or a search warrant to do, or some of that harder tactical side of policing, which he seemed to love. But then when we take a look at his service history, there's so much community engagement, community spirit. Behind all of that bravado, there was certainly a piece of Mark that looked after those people that couldn't look after themselves, that genuinely needed a helping hand, and Mark was always there in a very unassuming way. But I've seen him with police colleagues, I've seen him with victims of crime, I've seen him with people that were down and out, where he would simply go that extra mile and continue to do that for no other reason than Mark knew it was the most decent thing that he could do. He wanted no accolades for it, but you would see him slip out of that station so often on his own with his gun, with that hat, and he would just go about his work. And when the beeps went off, when people that needed help in terms of these in the two blues, he would be in there. I sort of got the sense often when he rang me about a particular crime or thing that was going on, you know, like you'd often ask, you know, but where are you, mate? And he would say, I've got one of them by the arm, boss. I'm trying to put him in the back of the truck. I'm there. You know, it was incredible, his dedication to duty, Chris, and his ability to lead people, I guess, from the front and very much in amongst what was happening. But it brings me to the hat, and I tried so hard to renew that hat, to get Mark to wear a hat that wasn't so worn, but it was near and dear to him. It was a part of him. It just flopped on his head. He grabbed the car keys. He had his appointments, and out he went, most often on his own, at all hours of the night, to look after the police that he led and the community that he served. I must say that a part of Mark that I really did take away when I left Wollongong was that part that I guess a lot of us sort of see, that we do things and people are rewarded. And Mark didn't need to be rewarded. He just did things because they were the right thing to do, because he was such a decent person and he was a damn good police officer. And the part that I took away when I left Wollongong, Chris, was the fact that you don't need to be recognised to make a difference in people's lives. You just need to get in and do what you know is right. And I must say that this place will be so much worse off for Mark's passing. I can't begin to feel how that sits with you folks here, with Chris and the family and friends. But I do know that you have a strong police family, and I do hope that we can assist you in some way. Rest in peace, Mark. Thank you.
Well done. After listening to Gary speak, I probably should have started with, we're here to pay tribute to Mark and bash Stewie Arnold a little bit. And now we're going to hear from three of Mark's friends, Ken McDonald, Brian Wyver, will be then followed by Klaus Kersinger.
Well, now I know why you're a Deputy Commissioner. Very hard to follow, and well spoken about Mark. So I'm just going to read. I'll try to. Hang on. Hanky, check. Back up, check. Contingency plan, check. So I got it all. So it's with great sadness that I stand in front of you today to celebrate the life of talk slow. The life of Mark Douglas Lavers, who was taken from us way too soon. It's hard to understand why tragic things like this happen to such good people. Today, let's celebrate his life and remember all the remarkable things Mark accomplished and how wonderful his life was. I can just imagine what he's thinking at the moment. Take on, Ken. Yep, harden up. Go to Bunnings, get yourself a bag of cement. 43 wonderful years with his beautiful wife, Chris. A lifetime with family and friends, and 32 years with his police family. I cannot express in words the admiration and respect I have for Mark. He was a man's man who always paid it forward, and to be taken so early in life and early in retirement is just a travesty, and it's not really fair. So I thought today, hang on, I've got to wipe the eyes, it's starting to get blurry. So I thought today I'd share with you my thoughts on the life of the man I knew as my friend. A wonderful man was I. The wonderful man was I loved and admired by all, and one of the most genuine, amazing people I ever met. Over the past week, I thought about the sorts of things Mark would like me to say here today. I have no doubt he'd be telling me to get on with it, not to dribble. In other words, kiss, keep it simple, stupid. And I thought I'd tell everyone why we all loved him. Honestly, I didn't believe this day would come. I can't believe it's actually here. There's a photo of 4 of us that Brian posted on Facebook, of Mark, Graham, Brian and myself in our mess dress at one of our many police charity balls. This photo speaks volumes about the character that Mark was. He was his own man. He was an outdoor man who loved his fishing, snow skiing, kayaking and walking his beloved beagles. He was the Beagle Man and the Lord Mayor of Wombara. And then he moved electorates and shifted to Jamberoo. I think the way people are with animals is almost a fair indication of the character a person is. And Mark was no exception. He loved his babies nearly as much as he loved his Chris. Mark always found time to enjoy his man time with his beloved beagles. I've never known him to sit still for long. If he did, it was to read a book with a red wine, a chocolate, or a chinwag and a coffee down around the harbour at Lavendy's. And we continued that little tradition for a while after we retired, until Mark and Chris decided to track the world. He was full of energy. Whilst he loved the outdoors, and his man time was totally devoted to the love of his life, Chris. They were soulmates and totally devoted to each other. Mark was a loyal and devoted husband. He was Chris's handsome man. He doted over her, and they were an inseparable team. He was so attentive to Chris, he set some pretty high benchmarks in the husband stakes, to the point where my wife could comment as to why I couldn't do for her what Mark did for Chris. And he did it quite often, in particular feet rub. At work, and Mr. Warboys alluded to this, he was placid, he was caring, he was empathetic. He was also not backward and ripping you a new one if you stuffed up. When somebody was stretching the tolerance level, he often referred to something we learned in leadership, the emotional bank account. And how that worked is how it sounds. You needed to make deposits into the emotional bank account before he would accept withdrawals. However, he did give credit with a short-term repayment plan. Mark was a fiercely loyal friend, extremely caring, compassionate, and a man who was always prepared to go the extra mile, putting others before him. Mark always had time for others. He was selfless and generous to a T. He was a tough bugger, as you heard, Bathurst riots, not short of going to a brawl. And you're right, I don't think he had a mirror because he wasn't that big, but by God, he was tough. He showed no fear, but he never forgot where he came from. He didn't suffer fools, dishonesty, or people who were negative or destructive. On the flip side, he had a wonderful sense of humour and a muttly snicker. Some of the stuff we used to get up to in their office, and I'll allude to that. We had a duty officer that spoke a little early. He's now gone up the ranks a bit. He had big arms. They're probably not as big as they used to be. He had a habit of leaving his shirt on the back of the chair when he went home. And Mark would taper the sleeves with a stapler, so that when Heggs came in the next day, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to name names. He came in the next day, he had trouble getting his shirt on. He thought his arms had got bigger. But I think the shirt was a bit small anyway. If you left your computer open and your screensaver, he'd change it. He'd also lock it, so you had trouble getting rid of it. And if you left your emails open, well, he'd send a bromance email to anybody and everybody, and in particular probably Tommy, and how much I loved him. You alluded to the motorbikes. Well, I've got to put my hand up. I contributed to that. My love of motorbikes, and I made a particular point of it when I went past Mark and Chris's place at Wombara. I flicked the bike into neutral, and my wife did it as well. And and I give it a rev and I bip the horn. And the other 20 blokes that I know that were with me did exactly the same. He's a funny bugger, and he said, "You faux-pobs are really giving me the shits." And I went, "Faux-fob? What are you talking about? What's a faux-fob?" He said, "Fat old fuckers on bikes." Excuse the language, but that was Mark. He did use that F word a bit. As much as I'm heartbroken that Mark has left us, I will be forever thankful that he was a part of my life. Just bear with me. My life is so much richer for knowing Mark and being my dear friend. True friends are like stars, which might not see each other all the time, but they're always there. And Mark was that friend. So I've just breached it. Mark would not want us to be sad today. He would want us to smile and remember all the great memories we all shared. And Steve and Mr. Warboys shared some pretty good memories. And I do recall the OC spray because I've been a subject to secondary spray. Critical incidents, he couldn't wait to get to them. Contain and negotiate. He'd contain. He had a different way to negotiate. He was a great shot with a baton. And he'd resolve the situation fairly quick, much to the disgust of the tactical blokes because they just missed out on a shitload of overtime. His memory will live in us forever. Finally, I'll be forever thankful to Mark for having such an impact on our life and making it rich with laughter, friendship, good times and wonderful memories. All the ingredients that we need so much in life. If there's one message Mark would want you to take from here today, and we often spoke about retirement and what that would look like for us, and that was, life is not a rehearsal. Me and Mark were affectionately referred to as Muppets, and I mean affectionately, because we always sat together at meetings and CMTs and that warm fuzzy stuff and sit there and grumble and carry on. It was affectionately, you know. And Mark would want us to take this message, and I thought I'd just print one up. Life's not a rehearsal. So from that picture there, you can work out who Mark is, and the other one's me, Statler and Waldorf. And it wasn't in a derogatory sense. If there's one message I would like Mark to know, and that is we'll always be there. To look after Chris. And she is, and always will be, a part of our police family. Done pretty well, actually. I'm sure we'll meet again, my friend. Rest in peace.
On this very sad day, I feel honoured to be considered to say a few words about Mark. Have you ever looked forward to meeting up with a mate, and when you do, you've enjoyed his company completely? Well, that was Mark. I'd like to speak today about Mark Douglas LAVERS as a workmate and a real mate. I had the pleasure of working with Mark as my boss and then as a colleague. I was a sergeant in Mark's team when I first met him. He always showed a calm disposition and was able to control the situation, the people and the conditions that his team of police were suddenly thrust into. I remember our team attending an execution-style murder and Mark, with his usual cool head, was able to take control of the crime scene and at the same time be aware of the welfare of the police attending. I saw in him a genuine and caring leader. Then as a colleague, I further saw Mark's ability as a leader in management role. His ability to bring sense of reason to what seemed a difficult task. Mark had an ability to use the word fuck in every sentence when describing something that it had happened. It seemed inevitable that this champion of a fellow would become a true friend. As a friend, Mark was one of those people you knew you're going to have a good time, a drink, and escape from the troubles of the world. Sometimes in police, people you think of friends are really only acquaintances. Even after retiring from the police, Mark, Ken and I have remained close friends. If there's one thing, if I could have one wish, it would be not standing here today, it'd be on Mark's veranda in Jamboree, enjoying a glass of his favourite Shiraz, Annie's Lane, and solving all the problems of the world, or as my good wife says, talking shit. Of course, with Mark, as Ken alluded to, the love of his life is Chris. In those good times of laughs and happiness, Chris was always there. Mark looked so much forward to his long retirement with Chris, and they'd already embarked on some world tours. So Chris, when this gets too hard, come and stay with us in Northern Rivers. I'm only going to be brief today, so dear friends, it's time to say goodbye to a dear friend. Farewell, Mark, and as the ode suggests, he will not grow old. As we that are left grow old, we will remember him. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Can I just say to you two gentlemen, I've been a celebrant now for 11 years. I've always wanted to stand up here and say fuck. And yous both did it in 3 minutes at a retired Chief Inspector service. Thanks, Klaus.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name's Klaus Kersinger. I'm honoured to be here today to speak about Mark Lavers and what he meant to our family. I was married to Mark's sister, Michelle, or Shell as we called her, for nearly 20 years until her passing in 1999. And I'm here representing today what I would call the broader Lavers family and to pass on to you, Chris, our heartfelt condolences. The broader Lavers family today consists of Mark's sister Gail Crichton, her husband Paul and children Sean and Mandy, and their children, Mark's sister Deborah Kiner and her sons Adrian and Brendan and their families. There are also many cousins on the Nyland branch of the family and one special auntie, Auntie Grace, who's here with us today. The family also consists of myself, my wife Rhonda and my daughters Sharon and Debbie, and their husbands Dwayne and Con, my stepchildren Lee, Chris and Michelle, my wife Rhonda and my granddaughter Ava. On receiving the news of Mark's illness and then his death, we were all profoundly shocked. Many of us, like you, are still in a state of shock and disbelief. I've asked a number of members of my family about the memories of Mark and what he meant to them, and I'll share some of those with you shortly. But first, let me share with you my early memories of Mark and how we went on to develop a lifelong friendship. I've known Mark for around 40 years. I'm not sure when exactly I first met Mark, and when I say Mark, read into it Mark and Chris, because they were a team and they were there mostly together. But I think it was around about Christmas 1979 or shortly thereafter in 1980. I particularly remember one evening in 1980 when Mark's mum Kath had gone on a holiday. Well, I thought I'd go over to Shell's place for a sleepover, but it seemed that Mark and his fiancée Chris might have had similar ideas because they were there as well. I think the consequences of that sleepover or others around that time included Mark becoming my brother-in-law in about June 1980 and Shell and I marrying and Shell and I welcoming into the world in December 1980 our first daughter Sharon. In fact, Sharon arrived the day after Mark and Chris's wedding, and Mark and Chris went on to become the godparents of Sharon. In those early days, I was always made welcome by Mark. We also shared common interests of fishing and the outdoors. It was easy to be Mark's friend, and I heard similar themes before in the police. People respected and loved Mark. I know that his easygoing and outwardly relaxed attitude resulted in Mark and I maintaining our friendship over the years. Mark stood next to me to give me support when I read the eulogy at Shell's funeral. In the years that followed Shell's passing, Mark and Chris continued to be involved with our family, attending many significant events, visiting my parents at Winmalee, and later visiting my daughters and I on the North Coast. My daughters in particular valued these visits, and Mark and Chris's ongoing interest in their life and the love they both had for them. You see, Mark was Shell's little brother, and she loved him dearly. I think through Mark and the love that he had for my daughters, they maintained a closer spiritual connection to their mother, Shell. Mark's legacy to our family was therefore a legacy of love and being a lifelong role model to my daughters and the other children in the broader LAVERS family. My daughter Sharon said, "I love the way that Mark loved my mum, the special bond that they shared, and in turn how much he loved and cared for us. I just loved being around him, listening to his stories and at times asking slightly inappropriate questions. Like, so if I did this, what kind of trouble would I get into?" She says they were hypothetical questions. I've always admired the love he had for Chris and their very special relationship. She said it was an inspiration to her and she will miss him very much. My daughter Debbie said that she loved how funny, intelligent and interesting Uncle Mark was. I loved his cop stories, and he always told me how much he loved my mum and how close they were every time I saw him. I loved having a wine and a laugh with him. He never said no to a wine with me. I loved how he made me feel special. I knew he always had my back, even when I made poor decisions. When Mark and Chris came to visit us last year, he made us breakfast every morning, poached eggs and mashed avo. His specialty was poached eggs. He made the best breakfast. After breakfast one day, he took my dog for a walk. I watched them from my window and saw my dog being stubborn. He didn't want to go. My dog was not as stubborn as Uncle Mark, though, who proceeded to pick him up and carry him all the way down the road so he could still say he walked the dog. She says, "I can't pinpoint one special moment, as they all meant so much to me. I will miss him so much." Sean Crichton said, "Mark was like a big brother to me, more than an uncle. In my early years, he taught me right from wrong, with mustard. He took me on fishing trips and fostered my love of the sport. He was someone I looked up to and respected, a pillar of the community in both his professional and personal life." His sister Mandy added how blessed she felt to have Mark in her life. Brendan Kiner says, "He was one of my most favourite people in the world, and he always will be. My whole life he had always been there, and I just assumed that he always would be." He said that the world is a better place for having him in it, and a much emptier one now that he's gone. We were all lucky to have him in our lives, and I will always cherish that. Adrian Kiner says, "Mark was an inspiration to him, a positive role model, always cool, always calm, always happy. He said back in the day at family gatherings, he would hope that Mark wasn't working. I must say I always hoped he wasn't working too. Even if he was working, there was still a chance he would stop in to say hello, and I do remember a few family gatherings where Mark would arrive in his police uniform to say hello to the family before going again. Adrian also remembered how his dad would threaten that Mark would put him in handcuffs if he didn't eat his vegetables at night time." There's a lot more quotes, but I will finish with one from Mark's Auntie Grace, who is Mark's mother's, Kath's sister. "I really loved Mark. I loved it when he came to see me. He always called me his favourite auntie. And I have to say, he was my favourite nephew. When I sent him birthday cards, I always sent them to my favourite nephew. A few days ago, I woke up one morning with these lyrics from a song in my head, and I didn't recognise where they came from, so I Googled them. They were from a Joni Mitchell song called Both Sides. I'll share part of that song with you because it made me think of Mark and the situation some of us have found ourselves in. Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds, I've looked at life that way. Oh, but now old friends, they're acting strange. And they shake their heads, they say I've changed. Well, something's lost, but something's gained in living every day. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life at all. And so it ends. It may well be that many of us here don't know life at all. Please respect Mark's legacy of the love he brought to his family, being a wonderful role model, advisor, and some would say sage. His humbleness and friendly nature. Smile when you think about him and be nice to each other. Thank you.
And now we're going to hear from Nathan, Jared and Lauren Pride.
Today we're here to celebrate the incredible life of one of our biggest role models. Uncle Mark has been an important parent-like figure in our lives since the very beginning, and it's a hard task just to say how much he changed our lives and how he helped raise us to the people we are today. Uncle Mark was devoted to helping others. He was always the first person up, rushing around the house and ensuring everyone had everything we needed. He made the best poached eggs on toast you'll ever have. He was a man that could never sit still and always needed to be busy. He went on multiple walks a day and would usually somehow convince us to join him for a quick walk. However, his definition of quick was very different to mine. We would usually end up on obnoxiously long walks that lasted at least 40 minutes, and somehow it was always uphill. Uncle Mark loved taking his dogs with him, and if they weren't available, he would take somebody else's, even if that dog didn't want to go. Uncle Mark was stubborn, something he has in common with my brother. Once his mind was set on something, there was nobody or anything that would change it. This is always something I've admired about Uncle Mark. Uncle Mark had a great sense of humour, making us laugh constantly. He definitely had a fantastic ability to tell dad jokes. Most of these jokes resulted in him laughing hysterically at himself and us laughing at him rather than the joke. As we got older, most of these jokes were no longer the normal jokes, but were a little bit more crude, but they were always funny. I always remember sitting down as a family with Uncle Mark and Auntie Chris. A fond memory I have with Uncle Mark is when he tried to teach the three of us fishing. I think he was hoping at least one of us would have the same passion for fishing as he did, but it never happened. The smile he had on his face when we caught our first fish is something I'll always hold on to, along with the memories shared together.
Uncle Mark and I were extremely close. We shared a special bond. This was for many reasons. Not only was he my uncle, but he was also my godfather. Our birthdays were only 2 days apart, and as the two hairiest members of our little family, we were declared Gorilla Man and Monkey Boy, ready to take on the world. By the time we began primary school, Uncle Mark and Auntie Chris moved to the south coast, and our family moved in the opposite direction. Even though they were the furthest away distance-wise, we always felt like those two were the closest to us. We had many trips to Wombara during school holidays, where Uncle Mark would spoil us, with trips to the beach and a progression from watching Wiggles to an excessive amount of viewings of the Mummy trilogy. We will always have the memories of spending Christmas with them, opening presents, eating breakfast, and spending the day in the sun. On one of our trips to Wombara, Uncle Mark decided he wanted to take us kids out on the day for his own. He had it all planned out. He was going to get us up, ready, pack our lunch, and take us to the wildlife park. Once we all began exploring, he was telling us lots of facts about the different animals, and he even let us feed the kangaroos. After a few hours exploring, we got hungry and sat down for lunch. He packed sandwiches probably because he thought that was the safest option. He knew the twins ate Vegemite and butter sandwiches, and he made me a peanut butter sandwich with butter. Little did he know that this was a mistake. I didn't eat peanut butter with my peanut butter sandwiches. He explained, "But Jared, it is peanut butter. It already has butter in it." We argued about this for a while, but eventually he admitted defeat to me. I miss you, Uncle Mark, and cherish the moments we had together.
Uncle Mark had a special ability. He was able to have a positive impact on the lives of every single person he met. He was an important part of our lives, teaching us many things like how to drive, how to use the brakes on our bikes instead of crashing into bushes to stop, and most importantly, for me, self-defense techniques. These were just a few of the millions of things he taught us. Not only did we learn things from him, but he was extremely supportive and always present in our lives. He attended hundreds of weekend sport games, school concerts, carnivals, celebrations, and when we didn't have any grandparents available, he even attended our school grandparents' day. I vividly remember him reminding me multiple times I look way too young to be a grandpa. Not only was Uncle Mark always present in our lives, he always knew the right thing to say. Well, at least he seemed like he did. He gave great advice, specifically advice that ensured we were not doing anything illegal and that we were always safe. He was very protective. Recently I moved out quite a distance from my family, and he and Auntie Chris came for a visit. He decided to go on one of his quick walks around town. Somehow he ended up at the local police station. He asked lots of questions regarding my location and whether I was safe, and also made sure that the police knew who I was, could find me, and could also help me in any situation I was in. Uncle Mark was one of our biggest supporters, always inspiring us and encouraging us to pursue our dreams, and I'll forever be grateful for the moments we shared together. Uncle Mark achieved so many wonderful and amazing things in his 62 years on this planet, and was supported by his beautiful wife, Chris. Auntie Chris and Uncle Mark were a team. Their love for one another was unconditional and inspirational. I can only hope in the future that I have someone that loved and adored me like Uncle Mark loved and adored Auntie Chris. Their love is one for the history books, two people who were destined to be together. Uncle Mark, you will forever be loved and missed by many. We will hold on to the wonderful memories that we have shared together. Uncle Mark, I know that you are probably watching over us, and you always will be. So please know that we will always take care of Auntie Chris, as will the police family and the Jamberoo community. So rest easy. Love you.
And now we're going to hear from Jane Carruthers.
Dear Chris, family, friends and colleagues of Mark, it is with the deepest of sadness and loss, but also an honour and a privilege to speak of our dear friend Mark. Both Alison and I have known Mark and Chris for some 15 years, and in the grand scheme of things, for the people that have talked about him today. It's not a long time, but for us it seems a lifetime because of the impact that he made in our lives. In that time, we forged a strong and unbreakable bond of friendship founded on mutual respect, trust, honesty and love. Mark became more than a friend to Alison and I. He became family, as did Chris. I often refer to him as my little brother. You know, annoying but very lovable and funny. Ruffle that little head he had. Memorable times, Melbourne Cup lunches, Christmas breakfasts, Easter egg hunts, all shared with our children and grandchildren, and many times in between with copious amounts of red wine. Mark being in our lives made us feel safer and cared for, a better place really. To try and explain this would be best if I tell you about how that care and our safety was paramount for Mark. We've been experiencing a lot of issues with some young people in our suburb at that time where we lived at Thurrool, and these guys were up at Wambara. They were tagging anything and everything with graffiti, including our double garage door, which was cream, so you can imagine lovely black graffiti. The vandalism went on for weeks, and we would clean it off, and no sooner would it happen again. We resorted to sitting up half the night trying to catch these vandals in action, but to no avail. We mentioned in passing to Mark and Chris what was happening. So unbeknown to us, Mark, upon finishing his shift at Wollongong Police, hid waiting in the bushes at an ungodly hour of the night or morning, would have been very, very late or very, very early, waiting for these vandals to appear, flashlight in hand. Upon seeing them ready to spray pan our garage, yet again he emerged from the bushes, torch in hand, and literally frightened you-know-what out of them. It's suffice to say, we had no issues from that time moving forward. It is with great joy that both Mark and Chris moved to Jamberoo from Wambara, as we had from Thurrool over 2 years ago. It's a beautiful place to live with friends like these two. So having our dear friends and little brother a stone's throw away was wonderful for Alison and I. Mark, being Mark, quickly established himself within our community. His ability to engage and communicate sincerely with anyone won people over immediately. He was easily recognisable, walking his beloved beagles, Benny and Maggie, every day around the beautiful streets of Jamberoo. Often we would take our cuppa out to our front bench and we'd look up and there was Mark and the fur babies heading down the street. He'd stop for a quick chat and then be off home to Chris. I'm sure Chris would think, why has he been gone on so long on his walks? Hours. But that was Mark. He was always in for a chat, no matter who it was. We feel so blessed. A man like Mark cared about us and loved us. Closing, Alison and I know our lives will not be the same without Mark in it. Dare we say, the world is a much sadder place without his decency, kindness, love, empathy and humour in it. He was a man who loved his trusted mates, but his love for Chris outshone everything and everyone. A true and beautiful man we called friend and little brother. Rest in peace, little brother.
Now our final speaker is going to be Mark's beautiful wife, Chris.
I met Mark on the 19th of November 1977 at the Boulevard Hotel, King's Cross. That was a date he continually reminded me of. I was 18 and he 19. There were no eyes across a crowded room. His friend Sean simply asked my lovely friend Liz to dance. And as was the way back then, we were thrown together. We clicked from the first moment, and the conversation flowed easily. Not surprising for anyone who knows us. He asked for my phone number, and that, as I say, was that. Over the next 3 years, we got to know each other, well, working our way through the best restaurants, beaches, fishing and diving spots, dance venues, movies, picnic spots, holidays, and more. Our dates weren't just alone. There were many a time where his sister Shell joined us for dinner, or my sister Jenny would come to the beach with us. My lovely friend Helen also joined us, and sometimes her younger sister came along too. Mark, even then, was amazingly accepting and inclusive. He loved my parents, and they loved him. He loved visiting and working with my grandfather on his farm. My grandparents thought he was fabulous, and my grandfather was a hard man to please when it came to his girls. I was once told to watch how a man treated his mother, because that was a good indicator of how he would treat you later in life. Mark was amazingly kind and caring to his mother, even when she drove him nuts. Box ticked. We married on the 6th of December 1980. He proposed to me on Maroubra Beach and then took me back to his beloved Maroubra Surf Club, where he asked the chef if he could stay back because we'd just got engaged, and he did. During the time we were getting to know each other, we spoke often of our families and childhoods. He'd tell me stories of the freedom he felt during the early part of his childhood. Growing up in Malabar, where he'd pack a lunch and with his friend Sean, would take off for the day, embarking on many an adventure. They'd play soldiers, build forts, scrounge through the bush and explore the coastline. They wouldn't return home till dark. Sean and his father Max formed a stabilising influence in Mark's life, one he was so grateful for and one that continued till the end. The three of them, even up to last year, continued to take fishing trips to Jindabyne together. There were also many stories of the darker, more challenging times. His father was a World War II veteran who had served in New Guinea. He, as many ex-soldiers did, returned with war neurosis. His father was an alcoholic who was violent when drinking. Mark told me in the later years of his life he had witnessed his father holding a loaded gun to his mother's head and a knife to her throat. There were many times his mother had to leave the home quickly, which meant she had to walk the streets in her nightie. Mark, as a young teenager, to ensure she was safe, would walk with her. When his mum had to eventually leave with her two youngest daughters as they were suffering, 16-year-old Mark stayed with his dad because he felt Dad needed someone. On Christmas Day 1974, Mark returned to his Malabar home alone after visiting his mother in Randwick. He found his father dead in the hallway. His father had taken an overdose of medication mixed with alcohol. This clearly was a pivotal moment in his life. He'd lived through a set of events which were certainly character building. They shaped the strength, the loyalty, the stubbornness and the determination that Mark always exhibited in times of crisis. During the next year, he supported himself by getting up at 4 a.m. to work on a milk run before school so he could earn money and his mother didn't have to support him. Our marriage, as do most, was filled with unexpected challenges, physical and emotional. One of the biggest was our inability to have children after the many years of trying and with no reason to be found. We were on the IVF program in the early days when children were called test tube babies. We were on adoption lists when there were over 500 people a year for 50 babies. Mark was a strong one yet again. He wouldn't let go. He told me then that our family was the two of us. We were the core. Our family, he decided then, would not be a typical one, and it wasn't. The ironic part of not being able to have kids of our own was that Mark was the Pied Piper of children and dogs. Our life has always been full of others' children. Nieces and nephews, friends and neighbours' children have filled our lives and our hearts for the last 40 years. Small children adored Mark and he them. probably because he was a big kid himself and always spoke to them on their level. And dogs. There has never been one who could resist him. Has been said on many occasions that Mark just had to have been a canine in a past life. We were blessed to have had a rich and full life filled with love, laughter and adventures. I was blessed to have shared it with a man who believed in and lived his life with integrity. He was loving and demonstrative, generous and funny and stubborn always. We were a team. There were hiccups, but never battles. There were never periods of not talking to each other, mainly because neither of us could stay quiet for that long. There are only two ways to do anything, and both of them were his way. Luckily for me, spoiling me was something he did his way. He also had two theme songs. One was, I Did It My Way, and the other was, Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. Our door was and is always open to anyone who wanted to visit, whether invited or as a drop-in. If you needed something we had, then it was yours. Mark always greeted people with a huge smile and a cup of coffee or a beverage of choice. Our many overnight guests were always made a full-cooked breakfast, and as may have been mentioned, he considered himself to be the master of the poached egg. He was always happy to give lessons to anyone who wanted a demonstration. And as Ken mentioned, Mark often talked about the emotional bank account, and it was something he lived by. He fully believed that every relationship, whether it be work, friend or family, was based on an account where the deposits and withdrawals were made as the need arose. If in a relationship he found he was doing all the depositing and the other was doing all the withdrawing, or if he saw he was doing his all to enhance a relationship while the other was detracting, the account of the relationship was closed. It was never with fanfare, fight or drama. He simply stepped away slowly until he regained his balance. This philosophy was the centre of many a dinner party conversation. Mark and I were partners in everything we did. We knew our strengths and our weaknesses. I was the dreamer, the planner, the researcher and the instigator. Mark was the practical one. He, with his strength and determination, made things happen. He was the anchor and the closer. He was an outdoors man. He skied, he fished, both freshwater and saltwater, particularly rock fishing. He was a scuba diver and a skin diver. He was a runner, a swimmer, a bike rider and a triathlete. He even occasionally rode a horse. In the later years, he walked. The more hills, the better. He was never known to step back from any challenge. I was reminded last Friday by a wonderful former neighbour of a discussion they'd had 7 years ago. Mark was nearing the end of his working life. He was tired and he was unwell. The 37 years of shift work and stresses and leading from the front were beginning to take its toll. Over a 4-week period, he had lost 3 friends, all amazing men in their early 50s. All deaths were a shock. It was the catalyst that prompted him to enter retirement. Although we'd not done much sitting still in our life to that date, he made the decision that every day was going to be lived like it was his last. The people who brought love and laughter and who enhanced his life were further embraced. Any stress was distanced to the best of his ability. Our lives were further filled with friends, friends of friends, family and neighbours alike. He became the master of the wood-fire pizza oven. We did lunch together and with friends. We took road trips and had 3 long overseas trips, ticking off everything on our bucket lists and exploring our family's heritage. We bought more puppies, moved from our much-loved seaside home at Wombara and the motorbikes to our beautiful country retreat at Jamberoo, where of course we renovated and built another garden. Mark became iconic in Jamberoo as the man who walked the beagles and was always up for a chat. He embraced village life and collected more friends and neighbours to bring into our expanded family. People knew he was sick simply because other people were seen walking the beagles. These people, who had barely known for 2 years, have knocked on my door bringing food and asking what I needed. I was told I didn't need to worry about feeling safe or supported. they were there for me, no matter what the duration. This brings me to the long list of people I have to thank. First of all, Eden and James Kirk. James, for looking after everything at home while we spent long days at hospital, especially toward the end. Eden, for being by my side every moment of the last 4 weeks while Mark was in hospital. She attended every meeting with me, held my hand while I held his, asked questions of the doctors and questioned the answers, and so much more. Eden is the perfect example of how friends become our family. She exhibited the same love, strength and determination Mark always did in a crisis. All the many friends and colleagues who have sent love, prayers and supportive messages during the time in hospital, and those who have sent flowers, cards and messages of support in the last week. Thank you from my heart. I know you, like me, are in shock that such a good man, a giving man with such a beautiful heart, who always appeared so fit and healthy, could be taken so young. We will all miss his gregarious nature and his huge smile. I will miss the way he laughed every day, especially when he laughed at his own jokes. Thank you to Nina Armitage for preparing the photo presentation. I handed her hundreds of photos. There were over 500 selfies alone. Nina waded through these photos and selected those that she felt resonated with the Mark she had come to know so well. The result is beautiful. Thank you to Serafina Mins for gifting us her stunning voice and musical talent. Your song choices are beautiful and heartfelt. All of the doctors and nurses in Wollongong ICU who worked and fought so hard with and for Mark as he took on his last battle, I will be forever grateful for the strength, the skill and the compassion they showed to us both. Thank you to Vivian Maris, who on 1 minute's notice drove me into the hospital after I received an urgent call on that last evening. Her quiet calmness kept me together as she negotiated the torrential downpour we experienced for the whole journey. Thank you to those who have helped me organise this send-off for the love of my life, while in shock and grieving, especially Ken, Bob and Eden. Thank you too to all of those who agreed to participate in honouring Mark. A special thanks to the hundreds of people who clearly wanted to attend today, but due to the strict COVID restrictions cannot. Thank you for your compassionate understanding and your loving support. Please know that you are no less important to us because you are participating via live stream. I'd like to thank the New South Wales Police for recognising Mark's contribution to his job, his loyalty and his work ethic, and his dedication and support of his colleagues by offering the honour of this police funeral. Thank you all, senior police, who have shown their respect by being here today. I am eternally grateful. Mostly I would like to thank my beautiful sisters Carmel and Jenny's husband Andrew. I called them from the hospital that last Friday afternoon after meeting with the consultants. They immediately made the journey to be with me, ready to stay as long as they were needed. They have been keeping all of the pieces together and I am so blessed to have them in my life. Many people have expressed regret that they didn't get to say a physical goodbye. Those who knew Mark would know that he wasn't about goodbyes, and being a proud man would not have wanted people to see him as he was at the end. He made that very clear to me. Mark was about being in the now, about showing love, kindness, generosity and respect every day, without regrets. This is how he lived, and that is how he chose to leave. On Friday night, the 7th of August, my beautiful husband, soulmate, best friend and the love of my life took his last breath. He had entered hospital just under 4 weeks previously with what he thought was a chest infection. He'd only been sick for a week. Mark got dressed as they called the ambulance. He cleaned his teeth, picked up his wallet, his phone and his glasses, and he walked to the ambulance giving me instructions. 4 hours later, he was diagnosed with pneumonia, sepsis and total organ failure and was on a ventilator. A week later, he was diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia. It was advanced and we had no idea. He fought to stay with us with every fibre of his being. Against the odds, he rallied and he stabilised. He communicated with both Eden and with me. However, he contracted another infection in his blood, which went to his beautiful heart. Mark died as he lived, with quiet dignity on his terms and in his time. His passing was peaceful. His favourite music was playing. He was in my arms and his hands were held by Eden and Sean, his best friend of 58 years. He was surrounded by love. There are no words to describe the loss and the heartbreak that's currently engulfing my every breath. But I was so blessed to have been truly loved by and to have shared my life with Mark LAVERS for 43 years. Until we meet again, darling, you are in my heart.
Well done, Chris. So today we also remember a man who was a giver. He was generous. He was one of those people you just had to like. Everyone else came first. His likes in life, they were obviously simple. His loves in life, they were simple too. He loved his family, loved Chris's family, loved his police family. And you know, Chris, I think he would agree with me when I say this. In this country, when you have achievements in life, you generally get medals or trophies or certificates. I think for Mark, his greatest trophy, she walks, she talks, she breathes, and it's you. Because you don't get to do what that man's done in his personal life, in his work life, without someone right by his side backing him all the way. Well done. And I also think in this country, the best accolade you can get as a male is to be called a good bloke. Mark LAVERS was just that. He was just a bloody good bloke, and it doesn't get better than that. And now I'm sure you all have your own memories of your time with this special man, and to give us a chance to reflect on those and just take a little walk down memory lane, we're just going to pause a moment now and watch some visuals on the screen.
Spend all your time waiting for that second chance, for a break that would make it okay. There's always some reason to feel not good enough, and it's hard at the end of the day. I need some distraction. Oh, beautiful release. Memories seep from my veins. Let me be empty, or weightless, and maybe I'll find some peace tonight. In the arms of the angel, fly away. you're tied up in a straight line, and everywhere you turn, there's vultures and thieves at your back. The storm keeps on twisting. Keep on building the lies that you make up for all that you lack. It don't make no difference. Escape one last time. It's easier to believe in this sweet madness, all this glorious sadness that brings me to my knees. In the arms of the angel, fly away from here, from this dark, cold hotel room, and the endlessness that you fear. You are pulled from the wreckage of your silent reverie. In the arms of the angel, may you find some comfort here. You're in the arms of the angel, may you find some comfort here.
I came by today to see you. Oh, I had to let you know. If I knew the last time that I held you was the last time, I'd have held you and never let go. Oh, it's kept me awake nights wondering. I lie in the dark just asking why. I've always been told you won't be called home until it's your time. I guess heaven was needing a hero, somebody just like you, brave enough to stand up for what you believe and follow it through. When I try to make it make sense in my mind, the only conclusion I come to is that heaven was needing a hero like you. I remember the last time I saw you. Oh, you held your head up proud. I laughed inside when I saw how you were standing out in the crowd. You're such a part of who I am. Now that part will just be void. try to make it make sense in my mind. The only conclusion I come to is a heaven was needing a hero like you. Yes, heaven was needing a hero, and that's you. When I think back on these times and the dreams we left behind, I'll be glad 'cause I was blessed to get to have you in my life. When I look back on these days, I'll look and see your face. You were right there for me. In my dreams I'll always see you soar above the sky. In my heart there'll always be a place for you for all my life. I'll keep a part of you with me, and everywhere I am there you'll be. And everywhere I am there you'll be. Will you show me how it feels to feel the sky within my reach? And I always will remember all the strength you gave to me. Your love made me make it through. Oh, I owe so much to you. You were right there for me. In my dreams I'll always see you soar above the sky. In my heart there'll always be a place for you for all my life. I'll keep a part of you with me, and everywhere I am there you'll be. 'Cause I always saw in you my light, my strength. And I wanna thank you now for all the ways you were right there for me. You were right there for me. In my dreams I'll always see you soar above the sky. In my heart there'll always be a place for you for all my life. I'll keep a part of you with me, and everywhere I am there you'll be. And everywhere I am there you'll be. There you'll be.
You know, we all come here today and we all try to say the right things, and nothing any of us say really seems enough or adequate or up to the mark. So I went looking for something I could say on behalf of everyone that came today, and I came across this. Mark, we're all assembled we've come to honour you, to share sweet recollections and express our gratitude. We knew that we were privileged to know someone so dear. You shared our lives, both good and bad, our true friend throughout the years. You took each day and challenge exactly as it came. Your spirit remained steadfast. Life couldn't make you change. And quite often we would marvel at the determination found in you. How much we'll miss your courage and your fearless attitude. So as we bid farewell for now, it's with deepest love and gratitude, counting our lives quite blessed to have known someone as wonderful as you. And I also think at times like this, we realise how fragile life is. So when you leave this place today, please take your memories of this special man and enjoy them. But because of him, enjoy every single minute you're given on this earth with good health. And I think if he could have the last say, he'd say this to all of you. I'd like the memory of me to be a happy one. I'd like to leave an afterglow of smiles when life is done. I'd like to leave an echo whispering softly down the ways of happy times, laughing times, bright and sunny days. I'd like the tears of those who grieve to dry before the sun, with some happy memories that I leave. Now my life is done. We are now just going to pause for a moment and listen to the beautiful Serafina sing for us again.
I am here with you by your side, sheltering your heart from the night. Wherever you go, whatever you do, I'll be always loving you. Let me love the world through your heart. Let forgiveness shine through your smile. Wherever you go, whatever you do, I'll be always loving you. I will be your friend, your comforter. I will hold you close in my heart. Wherever you go, whatever you do, I'll be always loving you. Let me see the world through your eyes. Let me heal your wounds with my touch. Wherever you go, whatever you do, I'll be always loving you. I'll be always loving you.
And reverently, we commit Mark's body to nature's keeping. We give thanks for his life. And may any regrets we feel today be slowly turned into gratitude for the good and the better times you all got to share with him. And I also think if he could, he'd want to say to you all, thank you. Thank you for making the effort to be here today. Thank you for seeing him through. And Chris, again, I think he'd say the biggest thank you to you. You have certainly stuck to that part of a marriage vow through sickness and health, the good and the bad, till death do you part. Well done, beautiful lady. Friends, now, as we do make our way from the chapel, please go with this thought. The clock of life is wound but once, and no one has the power to tell just when the hands will stop, at a late or early hour. Now is the only time you have. Live, love, toil with will. Place no faith in tomorrow, for that clock may then be still. And now could you all please stand?